Hello, Sales Nation. I'm your host, Will Barron, as always, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast. On this episode, we have Steve Sisler, and we're talking about how you can read people through their body language and all that good stuff, which we touched on before, but with a twist of talking about personality types and how that influences everything. Absolutely fascinating discussion with Steve today. You can find out more about Steve over at stevesisler.org. You can find out more about his latest project over at jumpstarters.net. They do personality tests and other thing there. It's well worth checking out. All the links that we talk about are available, as always, on the show notes over at salesman.red. And just before we jump into the episode, a quick one from me in that you guys have been leaving a lot of iTunes reviews recently. I've asked for it, and it seems every time I ask for it, you guys go for it and leave us a bunch of reviews, which is awesome. To kind of reward and encourage it a bit more, perhaps, what we're going to do from now on, if you leave a review in iTunes and then you email me over at will@salesman.red, we will send you a thank you note, which comes on a nice little card. If you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see it here. But also, we have a whole ton of stickers. So it's this logo here, and these are what the stickers look like. I've got them on my laptop, which you've probably seen. They're on different bits of audio and video equipment that we use to do all this, especially when we go out and do things in public, and the live podcast and the live recordings that we do. So yeah, you don't have to have them if you don't want, but I thought that'd be a nice little treat for you guys who are fans of the podcast, who listen regularly. So yeah, just to reiterate that, if you go to iTunes, click on the podcast, leave a review. Be total honest, if you think the podcast is garbage, don't leave us 5 stars, but obviously we appreciate it when you do leave 5-star reviews. Do that, drop me an email just so I can tally up who's left a review, and then your email address, so I can get your contact details so we can send you the stickers, and we'll send you out a bunch of stickers. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll talk about it again in the next podcast, and I'll probably mention how many new reviews we've got, just as a way to encourage it. And with that all said, I just want to thank you again for tuning in. I know you're busy, you've got a lot on, you work in sales, man. There's so much to do every single day, but by listening to these podcasts, hopefully you're improving your craft, and I know today's show with Steve will really benefit you. So with that all said, let's jump into the show. Hi Steve, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Well, hello, it's good to be here.
Good stuff. I'm excited to have you on, mate, and you're going to dive into one of my favorite topics now in the greater world of sales and the great world of psychology and everything else that we're going to talk about. I'm going to start with this, obviously a massively loaded question, because if the answer is no, then it's going to be the shortest interview of all time. But is it really possible to read people and understand what they're perhaps thinking or where their mindset is without listening to what they're saying?
Yes, it is. And the reason being is because communication through the mouth is only 7% of communication. The rest is in mannerisms, tone of voice, body language, all the observable indicators, as we call it. And so if you can master what those look like and then what they mean, then yes, you can read an individual in under 3 minutes.
Brilliant. You give me some numbers to go out there as well. Why is that 7% so prevalent? Because we think a lot, and I'm talking about sales specifically, obviously for our audience, but a salesperson will spend more than 97% of their time thinking about the content within a sales presentation. They will, and I'm talking about the other way around of the salesperson presenting as opposed to reading the audience for the second, but they will put a load of effort into the content, what they're going to say, but they won't put that much effort into how they say it, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Is it just that it's counterintuitive, perhaps, or people just aren't informed that body language, mannerisms, tone of voice makes such a difference?
People just don't know that. I mean, it's not publicized widely. For instance, when sharing with an audience, showing the palms of your hands will solicit from the crowd a better response to what you're saying than if you don't show your palms in a conversation or in a presentation. Bill Clinton is famous for palm showing. On the other side of that coin, his wife is famous for pointing at people, which is actually the worst thing you can do. And so it's just interesting how different people are. And well, Hillary's a dominant and Bill is an influencer. That's the difference. Their brains are wired differently. And so when you understand yourself and what your style is, when you're presenting, you'll know where your downside is. In other words, some people are not very good at a delivery, and other people are naturally good at a delivery. But understanding what works and what doesn't is paramount to successful speaking.
Fantastic. So we've already gone down the route that I wanted to go here, Steve, in that I don't think, I think there's, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, I think there's loads of cliched examples of when you're trying to build rapport with someone and they cross their legs, you cross your legs and you mirror what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the very basic sales training that most salespeople get, until they search out a podcast like this or they go and get a coach or whatever they do to improve their sales skills, that's the kind of thing that's taught to them. And tell me if I'm right, but a lot of that is just nonsense or totally overemphasized.
Yeah, I would say overemphasized. I mean, mirroring has a place, but not all the time. Just with super dominant styles, probably. But the fact of the matter is, I teach people not to be professional, but to be personal, because we're dealing with people. People are wired for connection. And most people in a sales role with an organization, they're trying to be like some kind of a professional machine. And it is a big turnoff. I travel the world and I meet with organizations and companies, and I show up in jeans and a t-shirt. And I had a woman break down crying in an organization in New York City that was, very high profile company. Everybody's dressed to the nines, and I'm in there with jeans and cowboy boots. And she breaks down crying. She says, "Look at you. You even get to wear whatever you want." And she was so moved by our conversation because it was a very personal conversation that she started going into her family history and all these different issues. And I was able to help her with some things in work, but it was beyond work. But letting her guard down was easy with me because I came to her as a personal, normal human being.
You're talking my language, Steve. We talk about this all the time on the podcast in the, and it's only my humble opinion, and I don't think I'm a guru or an expert or anything in sales, but I'm obviously speaking to people like yourself all the time. So hopefully some of it will rub off at some point. But I feel the time of the corporate salesperson in a suit, dressed like every other salesperson, dressed in this horrible, weird thing that it's not natural to wear. Obviously, you want to look smart, but then pitching the same pitch, using the same sales process that has come for years and years before them, and there's no experimentation there. I think that's all ended. And I think the time of the salesperson who is, as you put it, and use the words, the individual and being personal, they can actually add real value to a interaction, to a sale, by being a physical person and being a consultant rather than obviously just spitting out features and benefits. So I'm totally on board with everything you're saying here. And what you interested me instantly with when we first started talking then was you took something such as hands being forward or pointing and you grouped them together, because this is something again that you can tell me more about in a second, but it's something that I've kind of known intuitively, but I've never really managed to suss out and find a process to narrow it down. But yeah, you mentioned the word style or behavior types. How do these break down? And is there a finite number of these that we can start to look internally at ourselves, and then we can use that same information and knowledge to look at the prospect who's sat opposite us, and we can start to read them?
Right. Well, there's 4 people types. That's it. It's very simple. And within each 4, each 4 represents a family, and within each family there are about 4 different styles within each family, but the main ingredients are always there. So I call these people mad, glad, sad, and scared. Those are the 4 groups. The mad people operate out of an anger emotion. The glad people operate out of an emotional, optimistic emotion. The sad people operate out of a patience framework. And the scared people operate out of a fear-based framework. And so the mad and the glad people are what we call uh, exterior thinkers, and the sad and the scared people are interior thinkers. So the exterior people are very active, and the interior people are very passive. And so once you identify the styles, you'll know how to directly sell to them, talk to them, communicate, um, and it'll change everything, completely change everything.
This seems way too simple, Steve, which means it's either absolutely brilliant, which I'm sure it is, or I'm missing something here, which happens all the time as well.
It's that simple. Listen, I was at a meeting and I was introducing myself to people, handing out business cards or whatever. It was a Chamber of Commerce meeting up in Boston. And a gentleman stepped forward. I shook his hand. I looked at his hair. I asked him what he did for work, and I told him what car he drove. And I was right.
Did you get it right?
Yep. Yep. Got it
And
right.
okay, right. So let's not role play between us, but go through this interaction. How do you, from looking at someone, and again, this might be totally obvious, but I think it's worth going over. How do you determine which of these four groups someone is in by, I guess, first thing that you're going to notice is their appearance or how they walk into a room?
Okay. Well, the mad people are very direct. They stare directly at you. When they shake their hand, they put you in either the vice or the claw, where they're almost taking your arm off. They also stare through you when conversing. They don't typically take their eyes off you. They stand with their feet apart, or they'll have their hands in their pockets or arms folded. They're very exacting. They're to the point. There's no small talk. They listen and give short answers. Those are the direct people. The friendly people smile. They have crow's feet on either sides of their eyes. They look around while talking to you, seeing if there's anything else in the room that's more interesting than you are. They're very happy. They try to control the conversation. They wait for you to finish so they can say what they want to say.
Mhm.
The sad people are extremely cooperative. They're very friendly, calm, serene. They don't look you directly in the face. They look away because it's too direct. And they're holding back. They hold their cards close. You know there's more to them than meets the eye, but you don't know what it is. And they're very difficult to read. And then the angry people are very analytical. They will put their hand on their face and run their finger alongside their nose, or they will fold their arms. They'll listen, and when they're listening, they're nodding, and you can tell they're doing the math. So these are the analytical reasoning people. So those are the four types. And once you identify which one it is, then you're off to a really good start, because you can start formulating your words and conversation to match the language they can hear best. And now you're communicating.
And are people very discreetly into one of these groups, or can people overlap as well?
There's an overlapping of the four styles because we all have these four primary emotions. They're like primary
Okay.
colors. So we all have them, but we have them in differing intensities. When each person has one, two, or three of these intensities that are higher than the rest, um, and they'll be in varying degrees. You can observe and guess where they sit if you know what they are.
Okay, and final, because I'm really I'm dying to dive into how you communicate, and as you said, the words and language that are specific for each of these. But before we get into that, because I think this is important as well, is this implemented at a young age, and are people brought up in certain ways that put them into these buckets? Is this something that changes over time? Is this
Hmm.
something that can, if you are a mix of a number of them, can change during a conversation?
Hmm.
Because I know I've been, to use an example, I've been in situations where someone gives me a ridiculously hard handshake, they're staring through me, and especially working in sales,
Hmm.
they're not sure about you as an individual. There's obviously the stereotype of a salesperson that you're dealing with constantly. And then 10 minutes into a conversation, when they realize that you are, for one of a better word, that you're not a knob or an idiot, and you're actually there to serve them and to help them, then they turn into more of a happy kind
Hmm.
of type.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I've asked you about five
Yeah, I
questions
know.
there, but
All right.
is this
Yeah. Let me answer them all in a row.
okay?
Number one, yes. You are born with a cardinal trait. Everybody's born with a cardinal trait. If you've ever had children, they can be 2 months old and independent, self-willed, and stubborn. And so uh, this goes back to the ancient Greeks, to the choleric, which is the dominant or the angry person, the sanguine, which is the happy-go-lucky, expressive influencer, or the phlegmatic, which is the amiable, sad person that's very difficult to read, or the melancholic, the analyzer, the one that follows the rules. So your children will have these traits right off. Now, the environment that they're raised in will polish these stones. It's like digging up a diamond, but once you put it in a polishing machine, it looks different even though it's the same rock. And so the environment has an influence on the cardinal trait that already is. As you get older, your behavioral profile will change into adolescence. It'll change after adolescence and into early adulthood, and it will change again in midlife, probably. If your intensities are super high, in other words, if we're measuring you on a scale of 0 to 100, and you're 20 years old and you're in the 90s on a few of these lines, they're likely not going to change. Although it does happen, it's rare. And so people that sport one behavioral dynamic in the beginning of a conversation and then change that behavioral dynamic once you're into that conversation, they start understanding who you are, where you're coming from. Their behavior will change because everybody has a natural style and an adapted style. In other words, if I'm outgoing, talkative, funny, always joking, and I go to a funeral, I'm not going to do that because I'm adapting my natural behavioral style to fit the environment I am in. The environment is what you are doing, who you're doing it with, and who you're doing it for. That's typically the environment. So we change in that environment in order to survive the environment. In other words, if I'm a careless person and then I go to work and I build bombs, my behavior changes at work. So if I'm meeting you for the first time and I'm an active style, then I may act over aggressive in an attempt to thwart you from controlling the conversation. Once I see you're likely not to do that, I'll calm down. So that's likely what happened in that example you gave.
And because I was going to ask then, is this different for business and home? But obviously that wraps that up.
Hmm.
And let's dive into some of the specifics here, because everyone who's listening, they know their customers. They have already grouped them into these buckets. How, and we'll run through them in the order that you gave me them in originally. But when you've got someone who is the mad or the angry, and they're giving you the heavy handshakes,
Hmm.
or the slightly more dominant prospect, you're dealing with them. And I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm barely talking about influence, but what's the best way to get on their level and build rapport with them? Do you mirror this back to them? Is that the
Yes.
best way?
Yes. On the dominant person, number one, don't be or act intimidated. Be and act confident.
Hmm.
If you disagree with a dominant style, never disagree with them, disagree with the facts, not the person. Um,
This is amazing.
when dealing
So,
with a dominant person, you want to let them win the conversation and you must lose it.
is it possible to do this, or is it fine to do this and almost overtly let them know that you're doing it, if that makes sense, so that they see that you're making the effort with them? Or, and this will be the same for all traits and how you've got to deal with them, does it have to be, does it have to appear, because you're manipulating the way that you're putting yourself across,
Hmm.
does it have to appear congruent for it to work?
Well, again, certain people would have a real difficult time doing what I just said.
Mm.
Okay, they're going to have a hard time, which is why statistically you don't have passive people in sales roles as a whole. You have active people in sales roles typically. Typically, the stronger influencers, the outgoing styles, the talkative people. You don't have the passive, quiet, logistical styles, logical people. operating out of the rational mind. You got people that operate out of the limbic brain, the lizard brain, which is very reactive, very intuitive, and very instinctive. They tend to be the best sales types. And it's only because they're able to do what I'm talking about easily, whereas other people find it more difficult. So let's say a sad person is dealing with a dominant person. That's a really bad mix, because they're born intimidated, and now they're coming into a situation where they've got a very intimidating person. And so the best way for them to handle that is not to be intimidating back, but just not let the intimidation work.
Mm.
Okay, so you're not pushing, you're just not moving.
So in case it's almost a case of being stoic about it and just
Yes.
letting it just rinse
Yeah,
off.
just stoic, stare, nod, smile, and get to the point. Just keep getting to the point, because dominant people don't like to belabor. They don't like ongoing conversation. They want to cut to the chase.
Okay, well let's move on to Glad then. And I think I don't want to discriminate against anyone who's listening, but as you've rightly said it, and I would agree with it, we can probably assume that most of the listeners are that active mindset. So we can picture it from someone who's active and outgoing. How should they approach someone who has the style or the behavior type of someone who's glad?
Okay, approaching a glad person, you must allow the other person to talk, because that's what they want to do. And they likely want to talk about themselves. So you want to minimize your product knowledge, and don't overwhelm them with facts and details. You want to have a good time in the conversation. You might not even talk about the product in your first conversation. You want to give them recognition. So if you notice something they're saying or doing that's interesting, or you can point it out, then that's something you can do. Listen to their stories. Have fun with them. Uh, when you're ready to go somewhere with this, jump on it, because they're likely going to jump with you.
Okay, and how about sad? Because this is the one that confuses me slightly, and I'm interested to see your thoughts on this because I've been in the experience. Well, I've dealt with the mad people that tend to be more of the C-suite that I've dealt with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
They short of time, they just want you to solve a problem or help them with one of their objectives. You go in, you do it, you show them a bit of value up front, and the deal's done. With the glad people, I've had many customers that I've had a good laugh with, and that I would go and see in when I was in the medical device world. It was generally nursing staff that had been promoted to middle management. They wanted you to just go in, have a good cup of coffee with them, not talk about business. And then as you're walking through the door, they give you an invoice.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad people, and again from my experience, and this is totally subjective to what I've experienced in the past, but they've been the professional buyers and the people in procurement, and they never they never seem to really like enjoy their job. They seem to have surgeons shouting at them that they want this equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got finance saying from the other side, we can't afford that. Go deal with it, and they always seem a bit down. And so I've never really sussed out how to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I've approached it is to try and get them enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your take on this, and what's the right way to approach them?
Well, to reiterate, the dominant people are very results oriented, so that kind of speaks for itself. The influencing glad people are very experiential. They want an experience, but the sad people are looking for security. The sad people are all about being safe, and the reason why we call them the sad style is because they're very safety conscious. So when dealing with the sad style, be yourself, be friendly and personable without encroaching on their space. So it's better to stay at least 3 feet away from a sad style. You have to earn their trust and provide assurances, because it's all about safety and security with these people. So you would deal with sad styles with commas and question marks, not periods and exclamation points.
So you'd want to pitch them on minimizing the downside as opposed to
Mhm.
maximizing the
That's
upside of
right.
the sale.
They don't care about that, and they're going to start feeling sold when you do that.
Mm.
So if I was selling a car to a sad style, I would try not to sell them the car. Okay.
Okay.
I would say, listen, why don't you go home and talk this over with your wife? You seem like a quick decision maker, but this is a real important decision. You don't want to be quick on it. And then they're going to just be looking at you like, okay, and say, listen, you might want to get yourself in a Volvo. And we really don't sell those, but I know who does. So you're trying to defer them and get them. So the more you do that, the safer they feel.
Yep.
When they want to buy a car, guess who they're going to buy it from? They're likely going to buy it from you because you didn't try to sell them. You tried to help them, because sad people are helpers. Mad people are doers, and glad people are feelers. And so you help the helper, and the helper will help you through a knee-jerk reaction known as the reciprocity rule.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they trust you, you're in, period. End
Brilliant.
story.
Brilliant. And to me, now, how you just described that seems similar to the final style of the scared behavior type.
Mm-hmm.
How do they differ? Because it seems like they're both coming
Mm-hmm.
from a kind of scarcity mindset.
Yep.
How do you have to approach them differently to someone who has the sad style?
Okay, so you're right, and that's very keen of you to figure that out. There are similarities because they're both introverted styles. So they are both thinking, meaning internal in their brain rather than their heart and mouth. They're more head and hands. So they're looking for information. Okay, so all
Hmm.
all scared people have a heightened awareness of errors and mistakes. Okay, mad and glad people have no awareness of errors and mistakes, typically. So the sad and the scared people have this heightened awareness of errors and mistakes. So you would answer questions with the facts, not your feelings. Okay, because they're looking for assurances and they're looking for the facts because they're typically logical. So be direct with a scared person, not indirect. You have to be indirect with the sad people, um, and you have to be more direct with the scared people. Vice President Al Gore is a scared. Okay, he's a scared style, so he's all about the facts. Um,
Hmm.
so you don't touch these styles as well. You got to give them space. They're always skeptical, and the scared people are the hardest people to sell anything to because they never have enough information to make an informed decision. And they don't like your impatience if you display it. Uh, so the best way to deal with the scared and the sads is to basically build trust, show that you know what you're talking about, provide assurances and information as much as they need without becoming impatient.
Fantastic. And coming back to Steve, to putting this into real world context for people. So a lot of people will listen to this podcast, naturally go, this sounds fantastic, and then not do anything with it. There'll be another group of people, which is probably me, that would be scribbling notes down or going on to salesman.red to see the show notes to this page where I'll write all this up and probably make some kind of graphic, something to go with it. And then they'll be using that and they'll be consciously thinking about every person they meet, whether they fit into one of these profiles or one of these buckets, and then they'll be leveraging the information that you're sharing with them
Mm-hmm.
now. Is that the best way to go about this, or is it, because I know some body language experts and people of that nature, they say as soon as you start overthinking it, it starts to fall apart. Is the best way to go about this to understand it, to get it deep into your subconscious, and then to use your gut feeling to make these choices? Or are we in a position where we can be more analytical about it, say, this dude is like this, I'm going to treat him this way, and you're making notes in your CRM as you go along of he reacted well to this, and so I'm going to continue doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Very good question. Um, so again, the different styles are going to have a different approach and a different way they feel when they hear this information. Um, and so, dominant and glad people are going to they're writing down or they're not writing down and they can't wait to go try this.
Yeah.
The passive styles are just taking in the information. If they're out there, they're taking in the information. They think it's interesting. They may look it up online or maybe find some books or whatever and slowly digest what's going on to be sure that what I'm saying is accurate. The other two won't check for accuracy as a rule. So when dealing with other people, the best way to do it is to understand, number one, that people are different. Now, if you can come away with something from this podcast, come away with this. We don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. In other words, if I'm not talkative and I'm not helpful and I'm self-reliant, then I don't want you helping me. So therefore, I'm not going to help you. Because if I'm doing to others as I want them to do unto me, then leave me alone. So I'm going to leave you alone and think I'm doing you a favor because I don't see you as you are. I see you as I am. But if I recognize you're a helping style, then I should be, do you need a hand with that? Can I help you with that? You're all right? You doing okay? How's your family? See, if I recognize your helping style, I don't want you to ask me all that. If I'm a dominant style, I want to just do business. So see people as they are, not as you are. And you have to override your natural instincts in that way. And once you start seeing that they're more personable, they're more friendly, then smile back. Relax, calm down. If they're very dominant and cutting to the chase, then good, get to the chase. You'll both arrive at the same time. So you have to really uncover, discover, and recover your own authentic self. And then don't see everybody like you see yourself. Know and realize they're different. They need to be dealt with differently if you want more success.
Amazing stuff. Steve, you're blowing some minds here. Just before you tell us a little bit where we can find out more about you, and there's a couple of links I want to share on your behalf as well. I've got a couple of questions that I ask everyone that comes on the show, so I'd love to run through them with you. And the first one is, who do you think is the world's greatest salesperson?
Probably, in my mind, Zig Ziglar.
Fantastic. And why is that? One reason specifically.
Zig Ziglar didn't sell people, he influenced them. And his root cause for success was he loved people. Mm-hmm. They weren't a means to an end. I always tell people relationships are primary, not instrumental.
Amazing. Next one. Other than your own, what's one book that you'd recommend to the Salesman Podcast audience?
Oh, boy.
It doesn't have to be sales. It can be to do what we've talked about or something further afield.
Well, one of my favorite books of all time is written by a man by the name of Donald Miller, and it's called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. I've read it 3 times, and it's about your life and story. And so what is your story, and are you in a good story or a bad one? Anyway, it really is introspective, and it was very life-changing for me.
Fantastic. We'll link to that in the show notes. And final one for me, Steve. Something to ask everyone that comes on the show. I know you're not job title salesperson, but you run a business. You obviously sell day to day, so you'll be able to relate to this. What is the one thing that if you could go back in time, what is the one thing that you tell yourself to help you become better at sales?
Have more self-confidence. Earlier years, my downfall was I didn't really believe in myself, whereas everybody else did, and I didn't know it.
And how did you get over that? Is that just something that time takes care of, and obviously telling yourself earlier would accelerate it, or was there any breakthrough moments for you with that?
Oh, there were breakthrough moments, and those are podcasts in themselves, I think. But yeah, I was on a journey of self-discovery and realized a lot about myself and how my brain was working, and it basically took me 5 years to change it.
Amazing. Well, look, we're going to have you back on the show to talk about your new book in January, so we can dive into that potentially then. But before that, Steve, I want you to tell us a little bit where the audience can find out more about you, and tell us about jumpstarters.net as well.
Okay. I'm stevesisler.org. I'm a behavioral analyst and a behavioral profiler, personality expert. I've got clients in about 18 countries. So they typically go there, and you can actually take an assessment on there if you want. And I debrief you personally for 1 hour and tell you how you're wired and what all that will mean. Jumpstarters.net we're launching in January. And I have a partner in this, Michael Gebbin, formerly Tony Robbins' videographer. And me and Michael are going to change the world one person at a time. And our goal is to help people uncover, discover, and recover their authentic self.
Amazing. And for everyone listening, if you're on a treadmill as we share these links, I'll link to everything at the show notes page, which is over at salesman.red. And with that, Steve, I can't wait to speak to you again and dive into this in some more detail, because I think we've only just scratched the surface of this in the context of sales. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And there we have it. I just want to thank Steve again for joining us on the show. We're definitely going to get him back on, because these 4 personality types, we only touched the surface of them. And I'm actually quite intrigued as to learn more about Steve's personal story. So we'll have him back on. We'll dive into both of them. Remember, leave a review, drop me an email, get some stickers, simple as that. And with that said, I'll speak to you again tomorrow.